Right. So, anybody wants to share anything? Anything? Any question to ask before we start reading the scripture? Anybody? So last week I gave a tasks to do, at least 2.
Call the midwife.
So number 1 was when a baby born, this baby will take the breath in first or out first. And the second one, the second one was when we become conscious of the breath. And that breath, incoming breath or the outgoing breath to start off with. So that was the 2 tasks. So which one do you think it happened between that? A baby born, incoming breath or outgoing breath to start off, and the second is when we become conscious of the breath, whether that breath is incoming breath or outgoing breath.
Baby born should be incoming breath.
When baby was born, whether is it taking like incoming or outgoing?
Doesn't it depend on what the mother does?
No, because like
It has to be outgoing because the alveoli are filled with fluid. That fluid has to come out first.
And start crying immediately with the cry.
When it's coming out, all the fluid will go because he squeezed when he's coming out.
Yes.
So all the fluid gone out. So when he's out, he's in here because everything is gone out now. So he has to take the breath in, the first breath in.
No, out.
but to go, but then you need to have something on your lungs to
So he's
push it out.
in.
He has to
That is
put the
fluid.
fluid out.
Yeah, fluid will go out automatically.
But I thought babies,
At the time
when
of
you
the
breathe,
birth.
babies breathe in your stomach.
Alright.
Yeah, I thought that. Yeah, correct.
Okay. So I
That's what
think
it's for.
we'll leave it you to search for us again.
When you said about exhale, what started working in my mind is, I'm sure for Chamanti also it worked. Since we know about the volumes, there's a volume where you can't put it out.
The volume for the exhale or inhale.
Exhale, yes, yeah. You go until that there's a volume you can't exhale out. So that is the volume keep the lungs opened up.
If we look at the commentaries, there is a simile given. When you say a long breath coming in, the simile is you cannot define how long. There is no, you cannot measure with anything how long it is, but it's like an elephant and a snake. Sometimes you feel like an elephant and other times you feel like a snake. So that's the simile given for the long breath incoming and outgoing. Right? And this, if you like we practice today, only long breath to concentrate on. And as you practice, these will become kind of, oh, that makes sense. Although you cannot measure it, but it's like a picturesque a simile given like that. So when you feel like the elephant, when you feel like a snake, and that also you can experience. It's similar, but not like a snake, not like an elephant, but it's not like a story of a prince, yeah, the prince, the snake eating an elephant, the story like that. So this one also you can, when you practice, you see that as a long breath. In a sense, it's become a very heavy, and also a long breath, sometimes it becomes a very shallow. It's not when you experience it like a shallow, long, you're continuously aware of that. It's like a snake, so long. But at the same time, sometimes you feel like a gusts of breaths. Amount of the breath is just like crossing, right? And the reason practicing of this long breath, we are working with that, playing with it, and making a long and a short. It's not always you can make it. And if you're aware of that process in between, you will be able to notice the short breaths. And then, not only that, you will also be able to recognize that why I am having these short breaths. Okay? So that's why when we practice the Anapanasati, in order to comprehend all the 16 states, work with the first breath, the long breath, until you can see other breaths. It's not just like watching the breath. We have to work it, and work until you can see these are different breaths. So that's why when we are taking a long, deep breath, until that breath cannot comes in, and then we are breathing out until that nothing is left, so completely gone out. So that's also, we are doing it initially, we are forcing it to happen, okay? But it comes into the stage that you realize you cannot force anymore. Body needs it. Now body is taking the breath in, okay? And the body also cannot keep it. Body has to push it away and push the breath out from the body. So that also you will be able to recognize that too. Right? And while you are recognizing that, again, quite often time, you still need a long breath. Not the body needs. It's the mind now. So your feelings and emotion is creating there to make you feel better. So that's why you're taking a long, deep breath. Like that. Right? So that these relationships also, you'll be able to recognize there. So that's why, first of all, we have to work with this long breath. Working with the long breath. And then we able to recognize this further on. Right? Initially, I was trying to print out this so that we can all chant, so that you can memorize it. And when you memorize it, then it's much easy to explain. But I haven't printed out. So I thought that we in this book it has, but unfortunately not on here. It has only on the first one. Actually, it has only the Kayanupassana, the first one. But anyway, so here, okay. So last week I also mentioned there are two words, right? Remember, two words in the Kayanupassana there. So the first two. The first two breathing meditation is in present tense, pajanati, which means I know that I am breathing in a present tense. Okay? And so that's why we are simply working or playing with it. So we are constantly aware of that one. Now after that, rest of all is in future tense, sikkati, in a future tense. And when, now in a future tense, sikkati, which means I train thus. So I'm training myself That means, so we have to recognize here that in terms of the training, there are three things come. Okay? So number one, cultivating. So in this cultivation, you have to recognize the primary object that you are working with. So that's the breath. Right? So you have to develop in a certain state, certain stage that you become so familiar with it until like mind and the breath becomes a one. It's called a patibhagan. So it's a state that you are one with the breath. So you have to cultivate up to that state. So you're cultivating. So number one is a cultivation. And then a developing it. So not just having it, but you have to develop that too. Right? Bhavana, that's why it comes the word bhavana. Right? Cultivation. And then this development, when we are developing here again, we able to not just one with the breath, but also able to improve into the stage that we can see ourselves as well as the breath and as well as the this consciousness. So here again there comes four things. We have mindfulness. We are mindful of the breath, and by having a mindfulness, in order to have this mindfulness, again we have to have a certain a wisdom that I have this object that I am working with, and my intention is I am working. Now I am practicing, right? And with that second, the limit this wisdom, and with that wisdom that we have some form of the concentration there. Without that concentration, we will not be able to be with the breath. Okay? So, and then again, we have this kind of another layer of a wisdom that all four are working together, so that my mind is fully on that object and working with that. So mind is developing. Right? Developing in terms of to be the suitable to understand things as they truly are. The third one is the important here. That is called repeatedly practicing. So repeatedly practicing, third one. So that also comes here in the future tense. That's called a sikkati. Okay? So that's why whenever we're talking about the sikkati, that means we're thinking of a cultivation, we're thinking of a development, we are thinking of continued practicing. And these are simply to develop further awareness. So then this awareness helps us to discern things as they truly are. Right? So, I'm not going to go back to the first and the second one. Okay, just we'll go. The first one is that say dighang va asasanto, dighang asasamiti, and which means this is a dighang va asasanto, dighang asasamiti. Breathing in long, he discerns I am breathing in long. Okay? Or breathing out long, he discerns I am breathing out long. And obviously the second one is breathing in short, he discerns I am breathing in short, or breathing out short, he discerns I am breathing out short. So these are the two. Okay. Now the third one, okay, says the two I know, okay, I know I am breathing in and I am breathing out. So the now third one is I train thus. I am training like this. So I train thus. Right? I breathe in sensitive to the entire body, or another way of looking at it, the patisangvedi is experiencing. Okay, so here I breathe in experiencing entire body, and when I breathe, so I breathe in and breathe out, I experience the entire body. That's the third one. And here, what we have to understand that body doesn't mean this physical body only. Okay? In the practice, it is talking about the breath body as a main. Okay? Breath body as a main. But in the meantime, when we practice, we are not again only looking at the breath body only. We are looking at both breath body as well as the flesh body, and how these two connects, how these two works together. So that's why when you are practicing a long breath and so you're practicing long deep breaths, and you see how that relates to one another. So breath itself is making your body calm, and in the meantime, this breath also makes the body disturbed too. The same in another way, the body is also making the breath calm or not calm. We see that relationship. So that's why even today I mentioned when you take the long breath in until that you cannot take it on, what happens? You try to notice that one. And then when you breathe out again, what happens? You have completely breath out. And then what is the experience there? And there again, you will recognize it's a body functioning. It's a body is taking the breath in. Whereas in the beginning when we are doing it, it's the breath making it happen. Right? So you see the relationship here too. Right? So that's why the Sabbakaya here, or entire breath, again, that's the basic way of looking at it. And then further on, I also mentioned today's instruction to recognize where do you feel that breath and how do you feel that breath. Right? So here, the basic instruction is ability to recognize the breath from beginning to the end. So there are 3 stages. Beginning of the breath, middle of the breath, and the end of the breath. Okay? Now, where do you see the breath now? Right? Sometimes you're following the breath from the beginning, maybe from the nose and the chest, and then the belly and the belly and the chest and the nose. So when you are looking at that and following it, it's like a snake. So there's a long snake coming. Right? So you're following the breath. And in the meantime, you know the beginning of the breath, and the middle of the breath, and the end of the breath. Now the question is, are you sure that you managed to be aware of all 3 stages?
Long middle stage.
Sorry?
Long middle stage.
Yeah, long, breathing in long. So were you able to be mindful of the beginning, middle, and end of this long breath?
You have to have a good mindfulness to see that. It's a development.
On and off.
Yeah, on and off. See?
Get tired because of the long breath. Sometimes it's tired to get the breath relieved or to get the next breath.
Tiredness.
I mean, because it was a long breath.
Because we force ourselves like that.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's tiredness is another story. It will, it is another story. It's there. You will experience. That's why later on you are not supposed to do it, so that there will be a less tiredness. But my question at the moment is, when you take a long deep breath, okay? So that's why today I mentioned about working only for the long breath. When you take a long breath, were you able to recognize the beginning, middle, and the end? That's all the question was.
Yeah. Notice a lot of other things happening to the body because of its longness.
Yeah, see, you weren't concentrating on the breath.
The body was stretching, the tummy was going in.
See? So that's why I also mentioned while I was instructing, where do you feel that long breath? Yes? So you weren't watching the breath. So you were watching the different other sensations that happened due to the breath coming in and going out. See? So with that, you are not concentrating the entire breath body. See? Yeah? You are not concentrating, or you are not aware of the entire breath body yet. Now you have to develop that. And now again, the reason I ask you to watch, where do you feel that one? Basically to disconnect those connections. So that's why there is the practice is given. I think I also mentioned last week, when you are sawing the wood. Yeah, when you're showing the wood, where do you concentrate?
In the line.
In the line,
Yes.
right? But in the meantime, you know entire sewing. See? You know entire sewing, but you're concentrating where? In the line. You're not following the entire sew. So entire sew is the breath.
Okay. That explains very well.
Yeah? So entire sew is the breath. Now where do you look at? Yeah? Where you look at? So when you look at in that way, then you are fully able to be mindful of one breath. That's called a sappakaya, entire breath. So that's why in commentary also further says, there are people mindful at the beginning of the breath, so in the sense of following the entire breath, in a sense like you're following all the soul. Beginning of the breath, but not middle and the end. You're already gone somewhere. You're already thinking of something else, which is very often easy to be lost like that. And then there are people, beginning, they cannot. The middle somehow able to recognize that. And there are people, not the beginning and the middle, but the end. The effect. That, oh, I am breathing. Right? And whereas, we have to develop all three. Aware of all three stages. Only then that's known as you are fully aware of this one breath. That's called a sappakaya patisangvedi.
It's
Now,
easy to concentrate the beginning of breathing in and the end of breathing out.
yeah. So that's why different people will have a different state. And aware, that's why I said, sikkati, train thus, I train thus. Now I'm training to know this entire breath. Not just the one of it. See? Not just the one of it. We are trying to learn entire breath. And this entire breath, the practice of ability to recognize it or mindful of that, once we have fully trained this training of long breath, so we have to be skilled in that first, and then rest, it's becoming easy to be mindful. Otherwise, it's just, oh, it makes sense, but there will be but, big but. And we will be thinking of, yes, I know, I can practice, like that. And because of this entire breath experience of beginning, middle, and the end, there are other techniques of practice of meditation developed. So that's why nowadays when you go for mindfulness classes, you will be told, watch the breath either in your nose, in your chest, in your belly. Right? Because that's again the state of let's call a visual state of beginning, middle, and end. So when you breathe in, so nose as the breath, the beginning of it, chest as the middle, and belly as the end. And when you breathe out, again, belly as the beginning, chest as the middle, and the end is the breath, the nose.
Isn't it difficult to follow your breath like that, like with the way? It's just quite uncomfortable, isn't it? Unless you.
That's why. Yeah, that's why I said the general understanding is we are following entire breath like that. Whereas the practice of Anapanasati is like the saw. You're sawing. You're not following the entire saw, but the point.
Yeah. You know it's all going in, but you're
Yeah.
concentrated on your
Yes.
nose, so
Yeah.
I
So
see.
that is called the Sabbakaya. And with that practice, what happens is that you're not attached to the breath either. The breath becomes just an object. That's why last week I mentioned, are you practicing mindfulness of the breathing with or in? Right? So we are developing this mindfulness with breathing. So breath becomes just a tool, a vehicle that we are using. We are not attached to it. We have to leave behind. It's like another simile that the Buddha gave. It's like the raft. Yeah? You make a raft. After you cross the river, you're not taking the raft with you. You will leave behind and you just walk. Saying this breath is like that. It's the raft. We use it to cut the wood. We use it to cross the river. That's all. Yeah? So with that, we are not attached to it. But whereas nowadays what's happening is when we practice, we are very attached to this breath. Yeah? Very attached to this breath. And as a result of that, when we are not paying attention to the breath, it seems like I am not meditating. Like that. Okay? So, this third one is another very important to understand as well. So it's called experiencing entire breath. I train thus experiencing entire breath. So training. So training is here, as I mentioned, three things to remember. Cultivate, develop, and repeatedly practicing. Otherwise we cannot develop. So with that cultivation, developing and repeatedly practice, what happens is that the mind comes to the stage that's so concentrated and yet it's so I think I remember if the word correct, malleable. Can you explain what does the malleable mean?
You can bend it or you can change its shape to another.
Yeah, so that's the right word then, yes. So malleable. So mind becomes malleable there.
Same like roti.
Yeah.
Isn't it that? Metal, ne?
That's a property of metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. So that the mind becomes in that state. Okay? And in that state again, the state that what happens that we able to see that is coming to the fourth one actually, and that we able to see that how things forms. And here again, how the breath forms and how the body forms. We able to recognize that. And then further on, having recognized these two, you also will be recognizing the mental formations due to the perception and feelings. Because we are perceiving whatever is taking place during this time, and then that perception is simply born out of your feeling. And on that basis, we are also forming mental formations called chitta sankhara. And this number one is a bodily formation. Number two is the speech or verbal formation, and number three is the mental formation. And all three is happening at the same time. But when we practice, we are seeing one at a time. One at a time. Okay? The fourth one is basically that the first one of a bodily formation. And here bodily formation, we're not talking about how this body created. We are looking at it how this is formed and continued. Same with the breath, how it is formed and continued. Right? Like that.
Is it four elements coming to that or not?
Yeah. If you have a good awareness and sampajanya, the wisdom, then you can comprehend into the 4 elements there. Not only 4, actually, you can contemplate on the 6 elements there. Right? 6 elements.
What are the 6?
What are the
Bodily
6?
formation, when you say that by looking at the breath, we seeing how the body is forming, how the breath is forming? Or?
Of the body as well as the breath. So when we think of the body, bodily formation, it's like keeping it a continuity, how it continues, because it has so many other elements coming to make it continue forming. And that is again due to the breath coming in. Breath is causing, or breath is influencing to make it happen like that. And at the same time, we will be able to contemplate and investigate the breath itself as components of 4 or the 6 elements. Like that.
I think Hiroshi was asking 6. What is
What's the other 2 then?
The 6 doesn't come in the bodily formation.
Akasa Vinyana.
Yeah, akasa and vijnana.
Ah.
Okay.
So emptiness and consciousness.
I
The
felt my
energy.
body was quite lightweight.
Body lightweight.
Kai.
In fact, this body, when our mind settles and we have no connection with this body, it simply merges into the universe.
Yeah, you don't feel it.
Okay, you do not feel at all. We feel because we have attachment that this is my body. We are still attached to this coarse material, or sometimes I call this a massive molecule that I can move here and there. Attached to it. As a result of that, we feel it. Okay, and that's why Buddha also mentioned it is the burden that we are holding, we are having this 588. It is a burden that we have to carry. It is a burden that we have to feed. It is a burden that we have to look after it, because we're still having my body. Right? So that's why we feel this as like that. But when we meditate, it comes to the stage that it becomes so, although it's a course, but mind simply settled, and this body is just become a part of it. So that's why we feel cold, that's why we feel hot, because we are connecting to the nature.
So like the breath you said, so body becomes like the raft for us to go.
Oh, breath.
So like the breath, you said that the breath is like the raft.
Yes.
So this body becomes like the raft for us to go.
No, what he
You
means,
can. You're saying similar thing, but in a different stories.
Yeah, what he means that you help us to
Cross the river.
Yeah.
Yes.
But here I gave this simile as a raft, the breath as the raft. That you are using it, but not you are keeping it. Do you understand now? And another layer of Dhamma, again, if you study, this body is also a raft.
That's what I said, this body is a raft.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's why the story that you mentioned, this body as a raft, is another story, another layer.
Okay.
But we are talking about the breath. Okay? Like that. Okay? Right, so I think the third one is like that. Sabbakaya patisangvedi. And there, you have to remember the first is a train thus, or you are training along with the breath. And the second is understanding this flesh body as well as the breath body. Okay? And the third one is knowing the entire breath and entire body. So it all comes into one practice, and that's called sabbakaya, or experiencing the entire body. Okay, and that is, once you're able to comprehend that, then the rest become easy. And the rest become very easy, because rest starts off with a training. Okay? Rest starts off with a training, and then when you are training with the breath, but also just a one single task to do. Right? One single task to do. Not like third stage, you have so many stages, so many things to do at the same time. And this is again the point, this is the time again. What happens is that there are so many other distractions come, and easy to be distracted as well. Because of the so many things happening at the same time. Right, I end here. Any question or anything to ask before we move on to practice loving kindness? Next time I will bring that and then we'll chat. Anything? Everybody's chatting? No? Okay. Right, let's practice loving kindness meditation to finish off.